I cannot reach that conclusion. It does not compute. Hmm. With more intestinal fortitude, with more strength, well, a different type of strength, one can actually reason and kind of get around certain uh, difficult imaginations and even thoughts that go on in certain people's minds. You know, there's something to be said about a man that's running on a feminine energy. The earth signs of the zodiac, the Western astrology zodiac, the earth signs are usually feminine energy. Receptive, thinking about being. Masculine energy, more of the fire signs, the air signs, more having to do with doing rather than just being. Now, knowledge. Knowledge is important, right? Facts, information that one gains from learning and experience. It's important to know things, right? Well, it's also important to know. Well, that's actually using the abbreviation for nitric oxide, which is the chemical or the gas or so that allows for a man to have erections. Which is obviously necessary in order to have sex, which is also required in order to impregnate a woman, for the woman to then be impregnated and then have children. If you want to actually have it through natural insemination and not artificial insemination or in vitro fertilization. Now, NO is not, I think it's an abbreviation or an acronym for nitric oxide. Well, I said in the spirit, some confusion was going on with that because you can kind of play around with NO and say no, and no sounds like no, KNO, which is another way of saying knowledge, right? You say you can command someone to know, then I command you to have an erection or something like that, or command yourself to be aroused, right? Or you can know and just have knowledge by learning or experience. Now, say say someone wants to sexually assault you, right? You'd be like, period. That's a conversation I can have with my future children, like a daughter or so. Okay, that's more. Well, morally dubious, not morally dubious. Well, I can go into such things where I can say, well, what you're saying is unspeakable. Is a man trying to think of a woman as a transgender person. Okay, that's very difficult to get one's mind around. A woman is not a transvestite or a transgender person. A woman is a woman. You say looking at very difficult things that one shouldn't be looking at on the internet, I suppose. You see people come to conclusions that they shouldn't come to those conclusions. Is it sin that makes people accept certain things? You know, and it's like someone who has removed their genitals by what's it called, transgender surgery. They can still know, right? But would they be knowing? And you say that's comforting to some types of people who have been through traumatic experiences, I suppose. They say you want to traumatize the devil. That's just to some extent. I'll be like, okay, you want to traumatize the devil? Are you calling me the devil? I don't think so. So overcoming confusion and confounding and such, and staying in one's right mind and having good mental health. Those are good things, right? And I say, I was working at a place called Little Island, which is after I as an usher, and before then I was working at New World Stages as an usher. Now the second time I worked as an usher at Little Island, I just instinctively understood that they were going to hire a transgender person. Okay, I sensed in the spirit they are going to freaking hire a transgender person, and what do you know? They hired a transgender person, and that person's name they said, oh, he always wants to be called East. So now I'm literally facing east. Okay, I'm facing east, and my bed happens to be face on the east side with a wall next to it. Okay, that's where I position my bed. I'm not going to show you my bed. Now, there are all sorts of interesting little challenges here and there. But I say, even if you want to, let's go on these imaginations, okay? Let me show y'all something, okay? Uh, hmm. This camera is limited in what it can do. Let's let's see. It seems silly, right? Okay, so I used a freaking Sharpie marker. No, not a Sharpie marker. It's a not a Sharpie marker, but a marker that has black ink, and it means something to me. I use my mouse to actually write the words on this whiteboard, right? And so when I was doing that, I was imagining using a what's it called, a dildo, but a mouse dildo that you would strap the mouse dildo onto your freaking mouth, and and be like you're moving your head back and forth, and penetrating the vagina that way. And so I can just imagine that the freaking the freaking mouse dildo can also be like a pen, and you're writing on the tablet of a woman's heart, And they say, why would a man want to imagine that? Well, it's a way of overcoming other challenges that I don't want to really mention here. Okay, and there's another way of meeting the challenge. Say, if you call a woman a eunuch, right, or if you call a woman a transvestite or a transgender, would you want to have sex with a woman? I say that's some confusion that's coming from certain types of people all around the world, right? To kind of make a man not want to engage in fornication specifically. hmm And you say, it's to some extent, people make their peace with darkness in different ways, because you can't keep on fighting and fighting and fighting against evil all the time. It's about, maybe psychologically. I didn't study psychology, but how much can how much confusion can I overcome every day? You say, my name means the goodness of the Lord, so it's good to be in one's right mind, right? It's good to overcome confusion. Say, you're in a classroom and you're asking the teacher different questions, and you come across some concepts and ideas that you're trying to understand in the class, and the student raises their hand and says, "Hey, I'm confused." Okay, and then the teacher then clarifies the confusion with clarity. Say, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a professor, but there are other ways. There are so many ways to overcome confusion, and even confounding, and there are all sorts of different concepts. And honestly, a lot of things that can help with is a dictionary. It's a dictionary. Go on the dictionary or buy a dictionary and just like look up the definition of different words, and that's clarifying. And the interesting thing is that I suppose the people that put together these dictionaries, and the people that put together these thesaurus, dictionaries, and whatnot, they have to be must have a lot of mental clarity, of course. And that's why linguistics and language, it can be a bit challenging for me sometimes. But I said sometimes some problems and questions really do have to do with actually learning my language. Now, when I say learning my language, I can say Yoruba. I guess that's my language that I should be learning. I can also learn some Spanish, right? Some Yoruba, some Spanish, and even some German. I guess. Italian. No, not Italian, but German. Mostly Yoruba, Spanish, and German. Okay, and you say unspeakable. God forbid. Okay, what's unspeakable? The things that I said before were very unspeakable until until I came out of the last mental hospital that I'll ever be in. They were unspeakable, and honestly, a lot of ways I dealt with the unspeakable things is just with music and artwork. It kind of helps out with the unspeakables. And then when I say God forbid, it just means I don't even question certain things. But I suppose some people, their understanding of what good is that I should know what it took for the basic goodness to just be goodness, to just be basic things. So you need to understand how society and all of culture arrived at basic goodness for humanity. And you say, to some extent, I say it's also unspeakable that I would allow the white man and even the white woman, to continuously question my humanity. You understand? And then I say, I would say, God forbid, that I should ever be compromised. Ever be compromised. Going to the dark side and coming out into the light. God forbid, but it's too late for that, I suppose. But and say, oh, we did things in the wrong order. How will we do them in the right order? Hmm? I say, some people they have the spiritual authority to make things so. You say the power of no, and it reminds me of this Joel Osteen. Okay, he posted a video on freaking YouTube about the power of no, and I said, well, I will tell you, I was trying to say those things. It's like the man is reading my heart. I don't have to actually freaking join his church. But what I'm saying is that I need to say no to certain things in my life without the confusion of no meaning no or no in other contexts. What I mean is what I mean. No. Okay. And then I also need to be able to say yes to the things of God and yes to what God wants from me. But I need the power to say no such that my no means no no matter what. And also so that I'm the only one using my no when I begin to know and know. You understand? So we go from God forbid to know. You go from unspeakable to God forbid to know. And that should finalize things. No, no, no.